My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and the grace to make these moments of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Jesus made a tour around the villages, teaching, and so begins today's Gospel. But of course, you can't help but stop to think, he made a tour. Well, Jesus, what was that tour like? Were people waiting for you? Like one of those royal tours of days of old? Like anyone who's watched the series The Crown will recognize when, at least at the beginning of the first series, the royal family travelling on train will be followed by thousands of adorers, awaiting them to merely pass through their station. But I guess it wasn't quite like that for you. Did people know who you were? Had they heard all sorts of dumb ideas, or all sorts of good ones? No doubt either way, you must have been the focus of that tour. And for the apostles, looking on, well, what was it like for them? I can't help but think that watching you and watching the marvel taking place, they must have learnt so much. Just seeing the way that people would encounter you. And of course, time and again, they must have seen that no matter what people's expectations, no matter what their prejudices or their desires, they would have witnessed the effect of those encounters, person after person, village after village, town after town. It would surely have made a deep impression on them, on how much of an impression an encounter with you could make in a person's life. But of course then the gospel goes on. Then he summoned the 12 and began to send them out in pairs, giving them authority over the unclean spirits. And he instructed them to take nothing for the journey except a staff, no bread, no haversack, no coppers for their purses. They were to wear sandals, but he added, do not take a spare tunic. Well, that must have changed their perspective a lot. Not just that they wouldn't be by your side, but there they would be taking your place, and with nothing. I mean, with nothing. That must have been really something. I wonder, Lord, if they were dumbfounded at the impossibility of what you're asking them, or if they were so inspired by everything that they had already seen that they didn't even pause to doubt, or anything else in between. I could understand either reaction, to be honest. I think we all encounter it in our lives. The enormity of thinking that we're supposed to carry your message, and at the same time that even together with our weaknesses and failings, you will ensure that there is fruit. And what wouldn't we give to have that fruit? The efficacy of the preaching of the apostles and our own work trying to re-evangelize the 21st century. How many things could we call on to make that effective? Our personal holiness, for example. And certainly we can't wait for that one, because if we wait to become holy, we'll be waiting literally the entirety of our lifetimes. Maybe we'd think that to be really effective, we had to find people already looking for repentance. Fat chance. I don't even think that's going to be their focus. Or an abundance of prayer and mortification in order to ensure that the grace necessary is there, as if your cross wasn't enough. Or maybe we think we need a PhD in theology, like everyone needs an academic to find an encounter with you. No, there's no need to wait for those things, or any other thing. There's not even any need to think that we need them. Quite possibly, we actually need less. What were those instructions you gave to the apostles again? Take nothing for the journey, except a staff, no bread, no haversack, no coppers for their purses. They were to wear sandals, but do not take a spare tunic, you said. Well, maybe we need less in our life. Not just for personal satisfaction, although that is most certainly the case, at least in the Western world. Having less stuff really does set us free. What I've just said isn't actually very precise. Needing less stuff, learning not to depend on things, makes us free. It's a break that's really hard to make because all that stuff can be really addictive. Sometimes, maybe what we really need is to see the contrast. I remember once, for example, I was on a service project in a small Melanesian island. There was a group of islands there, and I was staying with others in a village of about 150 people. People had absolutely nothing. They lived basically a subsistence life. But just across the water, on another island, was an absolute top-class resort, where people would come from all over the world and pay thousands of dollars every night just for the privilege of staying there. And of course, we met some of the people at the resort, and we lived with the people in the village. And you could see there in an absolutely palpable way the contrast of those who depended on money and those who didn't. Now, the people staying in the resort were on holiday in an island paradise in the Pacific Ocean. It's not like they weren't happy. They seemed to be, by and large, pretty happy, at least there and then. But whatever happiness they had, it didn't compare either to the happiness nor, more importantly, to the astonishing goodness of the people we found living in that village with us. There you could see in a really practical way that stuff was never going to make a person happy, because precisely those with less were the ones who are more free, more human, more happy, and of course, more full of virtue as well. I suppose the effect on the apostles must have been the same. They learned to be more human, and they learned to trust in you, rather than trust in stuff. And somehow I know, Lord, it's got to be the same for us. It's easy to always feel like we need more. It seems to be one of those basic, almost animal instincts of humanity. Pile stuff up, need more, have more. It might make you feel better, you think. Might make you feel more powerful, more important. With more stuff, it might just be that you feel more like one of the others. That you feel you can be like everyone else if you have what they have. And hidden discreetly behind that, you find the deception that if you have more than them, you'll be better than them. And obviously, if you have less, you're not as good as the rest. There are countless erroneous reasons why we feel the need to have more. Some of them make sense, at least at the animal level, the very basic level. But obviously, that does nothing for the soul. And that, Jesus, is why I suppose your instructions must have been so striking and so helpful for your apostles. Without all that stuff, they were more powerful. It wasn't just the image of power, whether political power or social power or any other. The image of being someone was replaced with the reality of being who they were. And I think that's something you probably wanted in order to work your power through them. How many times do we sell ourselves short by selling out to materialism, thinking that we aren't worth enough without more stuff, when in reality we're worth infinitely more than all the stuff the world could possibly offer? Jesus, how much I wish that we would really understand how much it means that we are worth your dying on the cross. What more stuff could I want that could equal that great and magnificent declaration, written with your own blood, that even God considered me worthwhile? Help us, Lord, to love to live with less stuff, to become like that, more human and more yours. Our Mother Mary, help us to love stuff less and your Son more. Guide us to know the unimportance of material things and how we will be truly free and truly complete when we don't depend on them for our worth. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations which you have communicated to me in this time of prayer. I ask your assistance in putting them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.